Hey everyone, Ian again here with Projekt Network, and we're doing a spotlight on the trades, and we're in this beautiful, beautiful penthouse condo in downtown Toronto. Here I am with one of our fantastic carpenters, Kevin Morse. Great to be chatting with you today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I got into the trades back in the late 80s, actually. I was going to school for photography and art, in fact, in high school. My folks, well-meaning, they were like, oh, you should probably get a trade or something like that you can actually make some money at. So I was like, okay, well, tried a little bit of electrical and mechanics, auto mechanics, and that wasn't really doing it for me. And then I've always sort of loved the aesthetic of wood and carpentry, fine carpentry and that. So I went to George Brown and got my apprenticeship back in the early 90s, and then hit the ground running and haven't stopped since.
That's amazing. So your parents, it sounds like, were supportive of the trades right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic to know. And I will say that's actually one of the more rare situations that we hear. A lot of people find that they run into sort of like a societal mismatch where the trades are sort of looked at as less than.
Yeah.
So it's really fantastic to hear that you came from an environment where it was actually supported and you were pushed into the trades. If you had to give advice to somebody new coming into the trades, what sort of advice would you give them?
I would sort of mention right off the top that it's a bit of a long journey. So don't look to be, saying to yourself, oh, within a year I'm going to be able to master any one of the aspects of what we do. It's definitely something that's a long-term goal for your life. And I think the takeaway that I would give younger Kevin is just to be patient with yourself as you're learning the trade. Because carpentry, honestly, is such a huge umbrella of what it entails between framing, between doing millwork, cabinet making, trim, things like that. So there's a lot involved. It's a pretty long, steep learning curve. So just be patient with yourself.
Yeah, that is fantastic advice for sure. Now, looking back at your illustrious career, is there a moment that stands out for you, a specific project that you would say that is your proudest moment, your biggest achievement?
I've had a few for sure. Before I started working for Hummingbird, I had my own company for a number of years, for 25 some odd years. And I've done everything from gifting my time to, there was an older lady that I was doing work for who was terminal, and she wanted to convert a garage into a bedroom for her husband before she passed away. So there's definitely opportunities to be generous with your skills as well. So I was able to do that for her at a very low cost. On the personal human side, that one really stands out. But then in the grand scheme of things, I was heavily involved with my church when I was living in Milton, and they gave me a blank canvas to create the sanctuary, like the main auditorium, which is probably a mistake for them to do that because I came up with all these crazy ideas and stuff. And so that was a pretty big one for me, because a lot of it for me is about community, honestly.
Yeah, so that's amazing. And yeah, just using your skills to kind of give back and be supportive, that's fantastic. Again, just messaging for like a younger Kev, a younger person starting out, what are some sort of like pitfalls that you would sort of want to highlight, some things, hey, watch out, like there's can be challenges. You touched on earlier, like it's a long journey for sure, but are there any things that stand out to you as general advice of things to avoid, things to watch out for?
It depends on what your goal is. Like there's a lot of younger carpenters, I think, that want to start out in the trade working for a company. So like working for Hummingbird is great because a young carpenter has all the opportunities, first of all, to do meaningful work and with a great team of people. If somebody does have the desire to go out on their own, which I see a lot happen, which is a natural sort of progression, I think. If you're going to do that, you're married to that. So there's that aspect from being a small business person like I was. But as far as being in the actual field itself, I feel like gleaning from other carpenters is a big one. If you have the luxury of somebody coming alongside you and mentoring you, you have to have sort of a spirit of humility in order to absorb the information that's out there for you, which I think that's a big one. Because a lot of times in this field, you're called to lead, but you're also called to follow. And that's an important line to walk. So I think humility is a big one.
That's awesome. Fantastic advice. Now, you mentioned earlier that you worked in a trade school at one point. You taught some of the younger generation. Talk to me a little bit about that. How was it teaching the younger generation?
I really loved it, actually. Yeah. So I dedicated about 5 years of weekends working at a small career college up in North York, and we would run 8 to 10 week programs, and we would build a small building, and then we'd do all aspects like drywall, taping, ceramic tile, all that, and we'd actually frame the structure and trim it out. I absolutely love it because it's surprising how many people, like you alluded to earlier, where there's a bit of maybe a disconnect in society where you didn't go to university, so you have to go to the trades, that's good for you, but it's kind of like too bad you didn't do the uni track. And there were so many students that I had in my time teaching that actually have already had a university degree, but they really wanted to learn how to work with their hands for, multiplicity of reasons. So I did enjoy that aspect of it, like giving people who were highly educated, an opportunity to go, yeah, you do this for a living, and it's very gratifying. And they found that actually as I was teaching. So I really do enjoy that aspect of mentoring.
Yeah, that's fantastic here. And you touched on a really good point. And my journey was similar. I had a degree. I went into a post-grad thing, and I did not like it. And then making that transition into the trades was challenging at first. So it's interesting to hear that was the sort of subset of people that you were teaching.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And one of the things we really want to do here is really shine a spotlight on the trades as a career path and not as an alternative career path. Like, it's not something that you do because you're too dumb or you didn't get into university or something like that, but as like a first choice for the younger generations, and trying to change that discussion within society. All right, I'm the age where I've got young kids. It's my generation now of kids coming up. We're the ones where my peers need to change their mind around their kids, right?
Absolutely.
And really strengthen that messaging to ensure that their kids are picking the trades as a primary career path, not as a backup.
Yeah.
So given that sort of long-winded message, what would be your comments on that? Like, how would you try to get that messaging out that, like, they're not a backup plan?
Yeah. I think the one thing when I was teaching that I would draw into my lessons once in a while, I would sort of say, show of hands, who of you have been to Europe, for example, or other places in the world where you would go to a cathedral and there would be literally generations of family members, stonemasons, carpenters, what have you, and they were highly venerated, these tradespeople back in the day. And yeah, unfortunately, it has been dumbed down a little bit, but the one thing I would try and express to my students is that I've done a lot of different things. I've done warehouse work, I've done, worked at McDonald's for a hot minute, like everything you can think of. And the one thing that I do find about what we do is it really calls upon every aspect of who you are, your mind, your body, it's exhausting sometimes doing this, right? How tenacious are you to get the job done, from start to finish? So it really does invoke all of your faculties, your hand-eye coordination, your sense of design, your ability to actually have some foresight to see what it's going to be in the end. So I'm of the mind it's very holistic in terms of your physical output and your mental output as well. Yeah, it's huge, honestly. Yeah,
and that's an incredible way to describe it, because there's a huge mental component. It's not just like some exhausting dumb thing where you just go and you're grinding away all day. It's, I think, less of a grind than people might think. There's still a grind, but it's more mentally exhausting,
really, sure,
than I think people give it credit for.
I think the one thing is to decide what path you want, because I did do a little bit of subdivision framing. I spent the first decade of my career framing. I feel like the natural tendency with most carpenters is to work your way towards the finer points of woodcraft, for lack of a better term. So I think the one last thing I would say is, like, try it all, like do it all, and then you'll find what your heart beats for, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, like you gotta.
No, 100%. And I fully agree with that. I came up doing renovations in Toronto, and I loved it because I did a little bit of everything. Yeah. And I was similar, like I went towards trim before I went and kind of did some other things, but trim was what ultimately drew me, but it drew me because I was able to experience all the different things. Like I dug my share of holes. Yeah. I decided I don't want to dig holes. Like, that's not the thing. But, I did some framing, I did some siding, back framing, trim work, I did some cabinetry, and it was the trim that really sung to me. So that is fantastic advice, just for like making sure that you hone in on what it is that makes your heart sing.
Yeah, and sometimes it's good to do the things that you don't want to do in order to determine what you do want to do. Like digging holes is a perfect example.
So that's actually that's a great segue into a question that I do want to ask you is, with all your experience, give me the thing you most look forward to, and give me the thing that you least look forward to.
Well, this isn't. I'll start with the thing I least look forward to these days, which is the commute, which is what you experienced today. But I grew up in Toronto, so I mean, it's part of the game, right? It's part of the deal. You have to go where the work is. So, and I think for me, if the work is meaningful, which obviously this place is like, top shelf in terms of meaningful work, so the commute's worth it in that sense. The thing I look forward to, I do like the challenge of what every day brings. Again, that can be kind of mentally exhausting, but you have to be kind of up for it. For example, these arches, which you're about to potentially highlight. Even at this stage of my career, I've done like a couple of arches in my past. These were a challenge. So I really do like taking the deep dive into trying to figure out how to make stuff happen, because that whole adage, it looks good on paper, is on the drawings. You kind of look at that and you go, okay, I think that's pretty close to what they drew. So I do enjoy the challenge. That's what I get up for every day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good answer. Now, in your spare time, what does Kevin do at his time off?
I spend a lot of time up in Muskoka. I have the fortune of having two really good friends with two different cottages. One happens to be on an island, so I'm spending a lot of time out in my kayak these days, which is just a wonderful way to kind of like decompress and get away from the commute and all the craziness of the city. But other than that, music is my passion. So,
beautiful.
Yeah, I've been playing for close to 40 years, and I gig regularly. Singer, songwriter, guitar player.
Guitar, okay. So is guitar's your instrument of choice?
Yeah. And it's crazy because a lot of people, something that would otherwise maybe give somebody a panic attack, being up on stage. Honestly, a lot of my gigs are on Friday nights. So if I've been hard at work, I'm just kind of like looking forward to actually getting up on stage and being in the zone and just kind of like performing. And it's a peaceful place for me.
Where do you typically play?
There's one place up in Georgetown called Uncorked on Main, that in the old part of Georgetown. I've become sort of a regular there. If you go way back, I've played folk festivals and Sneaky D's and Lee's Palace and all the haunts in Toronto.
That's amazing. I'm gonna have to come check you out at some point.
Yes, please do. I would love that. Yeah.